Welcome, guys. I am super pumped today because I have an amazing person called Elliot Kay. Elliot is a certified coach, a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist, and accredited strategist. He currently runs two businesses, a strategy business, and is the commercial director and lead trainer for Speaker Express. Elliot has worked across the globe in the UK, Africa, USA, and Europe. He has a combined 17 years experience in both training and coaching, having designed and delivered training for Sky Television, TalkTalk, the NHS, and many, many more. After almost losing everything, Elliot has turned around his businesses to form one of the leading strategy, training, and coaching companies for both self-development and strategy in the UK, using his own experience to ensure others don't make the same mistake as him. As part of giving back, Elliot has been a mentor for the Princess Trust for the last 5 years. He has unlimited passion for results. His passion is to help business owners to live the elite business lifestyle through strategy boardrooms, workshops, and mentoring. Welcome, Elliot.
Thank you. What a lovely introduction.
You have a very impressive bio. I think what it just missed was the fact that you're also an author of 2 books. I think it's 2 books or 3 books.
It's 3 books.
It's 3 books.
But you're holding 2. Yeah.
I'm holding 2. 2 of them I read. So I've read that It's Your Right to Be Wrong, which is the subject of this podcast, and also Power to Succeed. I loved both of them. I think they're necessary for everyone to read.
Thank you.
But obviously, because you're quite open, you shared your own story, which we'll mention here as well.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to read them, and of course for having me on your podcast. I'm rather excited and intrigued to see where do we go with this.
Exactly. So Elliot, would you like to tell us a little bit more? Obviously I did describe your bio and a little bit of you, but maybe you make the introduction of yourselves. Where have you been, how have you come, and the story behind the It's Your Right to Be Wrong.
Yeah,
the message behind it.
Yeah, okay. So It's Your Right to Be Wrong was born when I was a coach. I don't coach anymore. Right now I'm focused more on mentorship, consultancy, and training. So both in Speaker Express and my business called Strategic Billion Services, but really falls under my brand. When I wrote It's Your Right to Be Wrong, it's quite interesting because I actually wrote it 8 years ago. And I know you came across me when you attended one of our seminars, and I gave you like 5 of them. One you kept, the rest you gave away, right?
Yes, I gave to my friends because I thought, okay, this message, it's important for people in my life to read actually. And when we connected after a few years that we haven't seen each other, I did mention that I actually left some on the underground as well. I used to live in Clapham, and I left some copies on the underground because I thought it would be useful for other people to read it too.
Brilliant. So that's great. And I'm glad someone's reading It's Your Right to Be Wrong. But the reason I wrote it is because at the time I was a coach, and I became really, really fascinated with the right and wrong mindset, because not only was I a coach, I was also a trainer. I was training for TalkTalk and Sky Television. I was doing all this training, and we take these people through these foolproof training, like literally press here, go here, just follow that. You can't go wrong. There's no way anything can go wrong. And then the moment it was about going live or really doing it, they would freak out. What if I got it wrong? And I was like, what? But you've just shown exactly how to do it. Just follow the process. Yeah, but what if I make a mistake? And I became really fascinated by that because they clearly weren't the only people saying it. I was hearing potential entrepreneurs, potential clients saying the same thing. Like, there's clearly something here around making mistakes. I was always, and still I'm always very driven. I don't fear the mistakes so much, definitely not anymore. Not to say in the past I didn't. And then I really started to research. I interviewed over 100 people about it, what does it mean to be wrong? What does it do to people? Where does it come from? I looked at some science behind it. Don't ask me to quote cellular stuff and, stuff in the brain, but I looked at some science behind it, and I really became fascinated by the subject. And it all came down to three key components why we fear, for me, when I did the research, why we fear getting it wrong. But actually, you know what? Getting it wrong is a great thing, because getting it wrong means you've taken action. Getting it wrong means you're willing to put yourself out there and take risks. Getting it wrong is where some of our greatest learnings lie. But of course, to get there, you have to do quite a lot of work. So when I did the research, I came up to the conclusion that there's three key components that surround why we hate getting it wrong, why we fear getting it wrong. And the first one is our association to pain, right? We relate mistakes to pain, both physical and emotional pain. And that's really we've groomed into this, the schooling system, our parenting system. This isn't an anti-parent thing. It just happens that we learn very quickly, even when we're learning to walk, we learn that falling over when we're learning to walk hurts. Not that it's a mistake, but we learn not to do it because it hurts. And as we're growing up, we then learn that getting it wrong, because there's no training. We can't train our children what's a mistake until they make it. So you can't tell, even though you can tell a child, don't do that, it's until they're about to do that they realize that it's wrong. You see? So that's the first thing, associating pain to both physical and emotional pain. And then comes the introduction of judgment, right? So as we're growing up and we start to get it wrong, we then learn externally that we get hit with judgment, and we get defined by our behavior. Good girl, bad person, don't do that, wrong, you're wrong, no, naughty, right? But that comes from the adults. And then, of course, we learn then to internalize that. So then very quickly, as we're growing up, our thought process changes when we're about to do something like, what if I get it wrong? Ooh, that could hurt. Oh, mommy would be angry. Daddy would be angry. Brother will be angry. Sister will be angry. Or I don't want to upset anyone, right? And it's not that our parents meant to do anything bad. It's just, I'm now a dad and I'm so conscious of this. But even now, I'm still like, hey, no. So then we learn as we're growing up, of course, that by getting it wrong, we get punished as well. And again, it could either be external punishment, or we learn to internally punish ourselves. So we learn again very quickly that doing something wrong entails daddy getting angry, mommy getting angry, someone getting angry, and then therefore being punished, deprived of something, something's taken away, something's removed from us. But then, of course, the really sad part, and I think this is something that over the 8 years I've watched grow increasingly, is the internal punishment, the internal suffering that it creates by our association. And that's really what the book is about. I mean, I think now if I rewrote it, I would definitely go into more depth. I would look a lot more of the neuroscience behind it. But that still stands. And if you watch anybody that fears mistakes, they fear pain, they fear judgment, they fear punishment. And that's why people just will not take action. It can be really crippling. It can destroy relationships because, a partner might not speak out of the fear of appearing wrong, or you're not going to have an argument because you don't want to be wrong. Or, of course, the other side is you must be right. And you will fight tooth and dog to be right. And it doesn't matter who you hurt. It doesn't matter what argument caused. You need to be right. Because if you're not right, you associate that to pain, judgment, punishment. So it's easier to fight.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I remember, it's not so much at this time, like now I don't care if I'm right or wrong, but I remember when I was younger and I was dating this guy, and every time we had an argument, I wanted to be the one that was right. And I would twist the situation in any way possible just to be right. And he was surprised, like, why do you care to be right? And I've never understood that until actually I realized that I was brought up in a society, brought up by parents. Obviously, they did the best that they could by raising me, but I was brought not to make mistakes, to avoid mistakes, to be perfect. And making a mistake or being wrong in a situation it wasn't acceptable.
Yeah. And if you think of the schooling system, for right or for wrong, well, ironically, You know, it's drilled into us. Making mistakes is bad. We got yelled at for making mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, if you didn't do your homework, it was wrong. If you spoke up, it was wrong. If you dared to express something that was different, it was wrong. You know, then of course we have the internal, you know, as you're going through school, what's considered right or wrong. So there's so much that's drummed into us about not being wrong that of course people, you know, are gonna fear making a mistake. They're gonna be, you know, fear the judgment because, you know, saying a wrong answer, the whole class laughs at you. I remember seeing, she's now a speaker agent. She used to be she was actually on The Apprentice, and she talks about the day she stood up, I think it was at school assembly, and went to say something, and I think someone laughed at her, and then everyone laughed, and then she couldn't do public speaking for years because of the amount of eternal pain and judgment she associated to public speaking. She's now a public speaking agent. She obviously made it onto The Apprentice. She got over that, but she talks about the detrimental pain. And if you think about those times where, you know, you went to do something and you were massively laughed at or judged for it in teenage years, that leaves a hell of a blueprint on us, you know, and it can really be detrimental. If you had an entrepreneurial streak and you went and as a teenager did something which was entrepreneurial, and then your parents laid into you, you know, had a go at you for how dare you do something like that, it's going to have a profound effect on you, you know, because next time you're about to do it, you'll go, oh no, don't want to rock the boat. I don't want mommy and dad to get angry. It was really painful last time. And they stopped me from going out for a week. It's like, oh. So all this plays a massive part, and that's a big reason why people fear getting it wrong. But you know what? It's your right to be wrong. That's the greatest way to learn, is by getting it wrong. Our greatest progress lies in making mistakes. Of course, we need to learn from them, not keep making the same mistake. But that's one of our greatest things, and that's why I called the book It's Your Right to Be Wrong, because that's where growth is. That's where our stretching of the mind, that's where innovation is. That's where, you know, things are invented because they got them wrong God knows how many times. That's how you get the woman of your dreams, because you get it wrong with so many, you get it right eventually, you know. That's I hope, anyway. Some people just get it wrong completely all the time. That's another matter.
Absolutely. But you're right, it's part of the process. It's okay to make mistakes. And I remember I actually, from my mistakes, I managed to get the best work that I could. I always, by making mistakes, getting feedback, and then I created something that actually would work for me, or I would never thought it would. So we need to be open a little bit. So no matter what we'll do, we will be either judged, we make mistakes, and that's okay. I think we just need to understand that we were raised in a certain way, and that's okay. Now it's our turn to actually say, okay, I accept the situation. Mistakes are part of the process. Rejection is part of the process, but I have a goal and I will go for it no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I mean, there is no quick fix, and there is no, you know, overnight. I think a lot of us obsessed with quick fixing, especially with the instant response world we live in, where immediately you can get something. But it's going to take time. It's going to take work. It's going to take dedication. It's going to take consistency to do it. I mean, imagine a world where, you know, mistakes happen, but are encouraged. And imagine that you were taught right and wrong, and you didn't learn it through judgment, through yelling, that you're like, look, and some parents are like that, you know, and some people are like that. They're like, okay, well done, you did this, but what if you did it this way next time? So the key is, like you said, is to learn from mistakes, but I really would love it if there could be a different way for all of us to learn, but not because we got it wrong, because getting wrong is great, that getting it wrong is okay. So a complete reframe, a complete different way of looking at things, that, you know, it's okay to get it wrong. You think Branson got it right every time? You think Sugar gets it right? You think, what's her face, Karen Brady gets it right? You think Deborah Meaden? No, of course not. The greatest learnings lie in the ability to allow yourself to make mistakes. They're going to judge you anyway, whoever they are. So you might be judged and happy with yourself, then miserable with yourself, be judged and not taken action or not pursued your dream.
And I remembered something. I was watching a TED Talk about women in technology. And there was this lady, and she was saying that guys tend to, even if they made a mistake, they would show the work that they've done. But girls, if they made a mistake or so they weren't not sure about something, they would just erase everything that they've done, and they won't show anything from what
Really?
so they would spend 2 hours working on a project. They might made a mistakes, but they would not show it to their teacher because they were afraid to be judged or to be wrong. While guys, they were just showing, they said, this is where I am. I'm sure that I made a mistake. I don't know how to fix it. And this is something that we actually mention, is that there is a big discrepancy, let's say, how boys and girls are being raised. And girls are being raised to be perfect and not to make mistakes. And that's why I think a lot of women want to get it right and frustrate guys, while guys are allowed to make mistakes and go for things that they really want.
Here's a reframe for perfection, right? Because I've always had an issue with perfection. And I think someone who strives for perfection is an avid procrastinator, because it's never going to be perfect. So for me, perfection is the ability to admit when you're right or wrong, right? Particularly when you're wrong. To me, that's far closer to being perfect than any other ideology there or any other notion of perfection. If you can put your hand on your heart and be like, hey, I got it wrong, or hey, I succeeded, in a way that's humble yet empowering, that to me is perfection. If you can sit there, show your work and go, hey, I gave it a go crack, didn't work, how can I do it better? That's perfect. You can sit with your partner and have open discussions about truly what you want and what you desire in life. That's perfection. The notion of a way to look and a way to behave, and then there's one thing that's above everything else, is nothing but detrimental to our mindset, to our existence, and to our fear of getting it wrong. So, my dear sister's, my dear wife's sister, when she was a lot younger, if she made a mistake, she used to scribble everything out or rip the page up. Like, where does that come from if that's not massive fear of judgment, that someone is going to tell her that she's not good enough? But before someone can even say it, she's internalized that, gone, this isn't good enough. Not only is it not good enough, it's so bad that I have to get rid of it. That is, and at the time she was 12. It's insane. And I do think social media has magnified this a lot. The magnification of judgment, instant judgment, and instant gratification has magnified it. More and more young people are going to sleep with their mobile in their hands in case they miss out on things. This need to be a part of something that appears to be better is destroying people's self-worth, because if they're not a part of it, or what they're doing isn't acceptable as part of it, it's really crippling self-worth. And I feel self-worth is getting worse in the last 10 years since I wrote that book, or 8 years, than better, because there's so many more vehicles now to destroy someone's self-worth, to be wrong. And oh my God, what if it shows up on social media? What if it does?
And we always compare our worst moments with someone's best moments on social media.
Yeah, it's true. There's a great saying, compare to despair. And it's quite interesting because I turned 42 this year. I know I don't look it. I know I look 21.
No, you don't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I look 21. You wouldn't believe it. I'm double that. Wow. And I even blogged about this because I woke up really depressed. And for days I was quite depressed, not like suicidal, but I was very down. And, my wife took me out and I was like, great, and I felt this hollowness. And then when I did some work on it, I realized I was running a comparison program, and I was comparing the 42 that I am today to the 42 that internally I felt I should have been, or where I was meant to be, both financially, and as a person, and I didn't, that was really depressing me. What actually reminded me of that actually things are great is when I look at my daughter, you know, and I see that she's fed, she's clothed, she's a happy little girl. She, you know, and actually in the grand scheme of things, we're doing very well. It's just not what my internal picture had in mind for me.
Yeah.
So I just need to change that. Now we've all got that internal picture. And if there's a mismatch, it can create that depression or anxiety or both, and really deplete the self-worth. So yeah, absolutely spot on there, on the money.
Yeah, and it's not, and you're right, it's not just to other people, but our expectation of ourselves is also what can cause a lot of stress, and I guess put us down as well.
Yeah.
And we can just give up on everything and say, okay, we just made a big mistake. And I remember when I started reading books in the self-development area, there was obviously no one was talking at the time. No one was really talking about like there is a process to achieve things, and secret was massive there back then, where you just visualize things and things happen. Which through the years I realized this is not actually the case. Absolutely not the case. And I think if I didn't know that now, I would be really, really depressed and would think that I have done things wrong. I shouldn't have even tried. I should have done things that were traditionally done. And so I think we need to be very careful to understand that there is a process to everything. Nothing will come. Like, I don't remember anything in my life that was just given to me, apart from food from my parents, for example, or the love from my parents. Everything else I had to earn them. My grades, my job, everything.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, there is the notion about the law of attraction, that if you resonate on a certain vibration, that you will attract them and they will come into your life. There's the avid law of attraction people that say they don't work for anything. It all just shows up.
Mm.
But I promise you one thing, they take action. I mean, they, you know, the key word in attraction is action. Action is what creates the attraction.
Yeah.
And, you know, there is an argument of force versus flow. And when you're in your flow, you don't need to force things. But the path we've taken is the path we've taken. And whether it's right or wrong, there is no such thing. It's what got us here today. We don't need fixing. We don't need to, you know, judge our path and someone's was better than others or someone had it easier than others. You know, on your thing, I feel like I've always had to earn everything, and that's true, right?
Mm.
I would love to get to the point where everything is given to me, or that I catch a break and some uncle I don't know leaves me 10 million pounds. That'd be great. I'd accept that. I will. You know, you hear me, universe? I'd accept that. But, you know, again, there's the whole notion of then would I be the person I am if everything was given to me?
Yeah.
You know, you don't run a marathon by visualizing it, although you can. It does things to your muscles. Nothing will be as great as the experience of running it. Nothing will teach you as much as training and running it, like anything. So the fact you've worked hard and got the grades and got the job, which since you've moved out from, you know, all those things have helped shape you to who you are today. That's literally what it's done. And why would you have it any other way? Like, no other way. You know, everything I talk about is in my book. And there's been some pretty bad experiences, but that's shaped me to who I am today. Right?
You're right. Our mistakes and our successes, but mainly our mistakes shape who we are today because we learn from them. I also recently had to, I guess, reevaluate a lot of things. And one of them was what purpose actually is, because I'm writing a book as well. And I was at the point where I was writing about purpose, and I said, okay, so what is purpose actually? And I realized purpose is nothing more than just things that make us happy. yes, it's also part of helping others as well, but this is like helping others makes us happy too. This is the weird thing. So and when you think about this that way, thinking about, okay, so I'll do things that make me happy. When things arise that are challenging, you don't care that much because you have a reason to do it. It makes you happy. I remember when I started my YouTube channel or this podcast, there's so many things I need to learn. And yes, I did mistakes on the way of creating those, but I wouldn't be here sitting with you and discussing if I hadn't made the mistakes.
Yeah, and slightly reframe. For me, purpose is more about fulfillment than happiness. And I'll explain what I mean. A lot of us talk about being happy, and true, we want to be happy. Happiness in itself isn't sustainable, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are human beings. We're going to have ups and downs and moods, and it's just the reality, right? However, fulfillment is longer lasting. If we aim for a purposeful life of fulfillment, to be fulfilled, which happiness is a part of, then I feel then we'll be far more purposeful. But also we have the obsession with I just want to be happy. Now, here's the thing. How long can you be happy for? Right? One day, 2 days, 3 days, a week, a month, 6 months, you'll be delusional, right? The whole point of us having up and down is to be grounded, is to grow, is to evolve, is we're coping with things, and therefore we need different states, different moods. However, fulfillment will keep us feeling certain and keep us going, even when we're having a day that's not happy. And to me, that's more purposeful, because the last 6 months have been really challenging in many ways for me. But because I'm fulfilled in what I do, nothing was suffering. Not my parenthood, not my businesses, and it's still been challenging. And, because part of what I did was gave up steroids for my asthma. And the steroids had just as much withdrawals as an addiction would have. So you can imagine what was going on in my head, and I had really bad down days. And I just gave them up. I'm not anti them. I'm not making a stand. I just wanted to see how my body copes. And I had some really tough days where the voices in my head were just, But because I'm very fulfilled in what I do, it's very easy or easier for me to park that and stay focused. So I definitely wasn't happy those days, I'll tell you now. But I'm fulfilled. And that's what I mean. I feel that we should all stay and aim for fulfillment versus continuous happiness.
I see. And that's really nice, actually. Thank you for sharing that.
It's my pleasure. That's why I'm here, right?
Yes, exactly. I think, so I guess my next question would be, we mentioned fear as one of the reasons, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, as reason why we avoid progressing or growing. What is your recommendation on overcoming those fears? Accepting that right is wrong is one of them, I presume, but it's I kind of feel that it's easier said than done. So how can you actually do it?
So the fear of rejection?
Yeah, fear, in general, fear. How can we overcome the fear of rejection or fear of judgment?
So first of all, here's the thing. So fear of rejection, for me, it's really understanding the rejection is a collapse of your model of the world. Because what happens is we go and we're like, okay, I'm going to go for this. And in your mind, you kind of go, this is the result. This is the outcome. The moment you get the rejection, your internal world and everything that you've built up takes a hit. To understand that and to deal with that is really understanding, number one, it's very rarely personal in a lot of spaces. Okay, I get if you ask someone out, they say no, they're rejecting you. Okay, I accept that. But even then, they could be saying no because they're not ready, because they've been hurt. You don't know why. So really, a lot of times when they're saying no, it's actually because they're protecting themselves versus rejecting you.
Yeah.
But because we go, you know what, I'm going to ask Christina out. We've been buzzing together. It's been a great time. She's going to say yes. Of course, she's going to say yes. So when I get the no, I'm like, oh my God, she's rejected me, right? Not the case. So many things are going on in the other person's mind. It's not personal, right? 99% of the time, 1%, that 1% just really doesn't like you. You know, that they think you got stinky feet and they just don't want to be with you, right? So yes, that one time, but most of the time it isn't personal, right? In sales, they don't understand your stuff. They don't get the value of what you do. It's not personal, right? When it comes down to general, when you put yourself out there, you get it wrong, people come at you. A lot of time it's because they want to protect you or protect themselves. So rejection as a whole isn't personal. It's just another mechanism for you to go to the next level, for you to step to the next level, for you to keep going. Now, the way to do it is to accept that rejection is part of the process, and to accept that not everything is personal, and to accept that not everybody wants what you have, and not everybody's going to buy from you, and not everybody wants to date you, and not everything's you're brilliant, right? All you need to do is focus on those few, or that big few, that do think you're brilliant, right? And that's how you deal with rejection. Do you think I don't get rejected very, often? Of course they do. Do you think every client I speak to, or potential client, goes, yes, Elliot, I want to work with you? Or you think every booker or every speaker out there goes, every event organizer goes, sure, Elliot, I'd like to put you on stage. If I personalize everybody and everything that said no, I'd be like, oh my God, But what I do look for is, what's the feedback? Why was the no? And I become curious, and then not in a detrimental way that I analyze myself to death and cripple myself. I go, okay, what could I have done better? What could it have been? What's the circumstances? And I look at that, and then I take that and move on, right?
Yeah.
So that's how you deal with rejection. The fear of judgment, I don't know if you remember, but when I did Power to Succeed, I used to do the judgment tunnel, where people used to walk through people shouting their judgment. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember, yeah.
Yeah, and to me, that was a great metaphor and externalization of what goes on in our minds. But here's what people always realize when they did the judgment tunnel. Most people, number one, it's just a lot of noise, right? So it's judgment. It's just a lot of noise. The other thing, of course, is none of it's really real unless we make it real, right? So again, what's going on in our head? What is it? 95,000 thoughts a day. The ratio is 1 to 7, 7 bad thoughts to 1 good thought. A lot of that is noise, right? So if you accept that most judgment is noise, it becomes easier to deal with it. The other thing is to accept that judgment is part of the process. The bigger game you play, the biggest you put yourself out there, the more you put yourself out there, the more judgment's going to come at you. And it can be online in the shape of trolls. It could be offline in the shape of people we know. But if you're out there because you want to make change, because you want to have a better life, because you want to impact people's lives, right? Judgment's going to be part of the process. All the time, every time. If you never have judgment in your life, then you're not doing something right. If you don't have haters, if you don't have people that don't like you, then you're a people pleaser, which means you're bloody miserable because you're too busy pleasing other people, right? The way to overcome that is you've got to accept judgment as part of the process. A lot of it's a lot of noise. Rejection is never personal, and it's only feedback. And it takes practice. It takes time. I used to sit there in these tough situations and go, in my head, there's only feedback, there's only feedback, there's only feedback, there's only feedback. Slightly a bit crazy, but going, there's only feedback. Because if I allowed it to become anything besides feedback, I think I either would have killed someone, like my boss at the time, or I would have had a depressive episode if I decided to completely take it on board. And that's really how you deal with it, Again, is it easy? No. Is it worth it? Well, it's worth it. Is it easy? No, it's not. I was going to think if I could change my language there.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more you practice it, the easier it becomes. Equally, do not become delusional. Do not be like, well, there's only feedback, so you don't matter. Only feedback. No. Listen to the feedback and choose which you want to take. The greatest thing is it Buddha. who said, you know, when he was sitting outside the gate and someone was screaming at him, "You're a lowlife, you're a this, you're a that, you're a this," and it really being rather horrible. And of course, Buddha was sitting there, calm, happy, and someone came up to him and goes, "How are you so calm? How are you still happy?" And he said to him, "Look, if someone gives you a gift, but the gift is toxic, and I don't accept the gift, who carries that toxicity?" Right?
Yeah.
It's the same with judgment, right? So if someone's like, "You're a terrible human being," and I don't take that on, they're the one carrying the poison within them, not me, you know. And I think that's something to remember. Look, those who matter, cool, listen, accept feedback, cool. But as long as it's still in line with what you want to do, don't change your plans or who you are or what you are because you're in for feedback, right? Or you're in for judgment. You got to keep that, but accept that's part of it. Look, if people are holding you back, let them go, come pick them back up. I've always said that. You know, if I listen to my dear mum, who I love to bits, when I was going through, when I came back from Australia, it's all in my book, and everything had collapsed around me. I had no money, right? I was really struggling. My coaching business was doing all right, but still I was really struggling. It's all in the book. Of course, her natural reaction was like, get a job, go back to work, get on the feet, then start again, right? And when I said no, she's like, "Elliot, you're crazy, you're this, you're that, you think you're always right, da 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 da," you know, like, and of course, as we know, if there's certain people that can really get to you, it's our parents.
Yeah.
Had I listened to her, I would have gone back to a job. And by the way, I was offered a job and I said no. And I probably would have ended up there because I would have accepted someone else's judgment to be right and not followed who I wanted to be and what I wanted to do. You know, so the way to do on both accounts is acceptance. Accept they're both part of rejection, judgment. Accept that actually most rejection isn't a personal rejection, and accept that all judgment's a lot of noise. Listen to the ones who are worth it, because the ones that truly care for you will come around anyway.
Yeah, I agree with you. Cool. I think that was it, Elliot. Thank you so much for your wisdom.
My pleasure.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much.
And I'll see you very soon. Thank you.
Yes, I look forward to seeing you, if I don't believe, very, very soon.
Very, very soon.
All right, thank you.